Just like every other week.
Just can't kill us.
Just, yeah. No matter what you do, we just keep on coming back live every week. Welcome, everybody. Today is Sunday. What the hell's the date today?
It's the 13th.
It's the 13th? 13th. Sunday, July 13th, 2008. We got a bigger studio audience than we've had in forever, and I don't know why. But as I mentioned, we're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. And the ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road beginning at around 11:30, except for the first Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center at 9th and Guadalupe. The August lecture is going to be, gosh, who is that guy?
Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, some joker, but the lecture is Belief, and it's a logical look at belief and justification, which I guess we could, as you pointed out, could have just been called epistemology, but belief kind of. Belief's the point. So that's the August lecture that I'll be giving. Those are open to the public. You don't have to be a member of the ACA to attend. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to any of our events. Just feel free to stop on by and to tell you what else is going on. We've got a lot of stuff planned, and it seems like we've got more events all the time. In mid-August, and I think we've settled on the 15th, but I'm not positive. We'll have a note on the ACA webpage, and you can go there. It's at the bottom of your screen now, www.atheist-community.org. We're going to be going out for a night of putt-putt, and it's a BYOB event, and there'll be more information about that. In September, we're having the Bat Cruise that we have every year. That information is already up on the website. We booked the big boat where we need 50-plus people. So even those of you who aren't necessarily in the Austin area, we've had people come down from Houston and Dallas and around Texas towns to come down for the Bat Cruise, and it's always a good time, so you're welcome to do that as well. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS. You can find out more information at nonprofitsradio.com, which has magically appeared at the bottom of your screen again. We had a live show yesterday. We'll be live again in 2 weeks. It's hosted by Dennis LeBay. Features myself, Schilling, and Thad's been joining us for a while. Russell was in yesterday. We're going to keep on going. We took about a month off and got mixed letters. Some were quite understanding that, hey, we already do, I don't know, way more episodes than your average TV show. But other people were like, oh, I can't take it. I want you guys to get back on the air. So we did a longer episode of Nonprofits 3 weeks ago. And then this past week, we did a normal-sized episode. Because normal's good.
Good.
They can't see you nod.
They can't see
and
me
the people listening to the podcast can't hear you nod.
I'll have to nod louder, I guess.
Which reminds me, banging your head on the desk. Believe me, some of the things we're going to end up talking about today are enough to make anybody bang their head on the desk. Which reminds me, the audio portion of this program is available as a downloadable podcast, as is the Nonprofits. And the video is available at Google Video. You can watch us if you can stand it. And now that we've got the new HD cameras and pretty CG graphics, we've got people writing us from all around the world. You too can write us. This is a live call-in show, so we'll have the number up for you shortly. But if you don't want to get through on the telephone today, or if you're unable to because we've offended so many people that the lines are full, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, most of the co-hosts, some of the people behind the scenes. We can't promise to respond to all of them, but we do read all of them. Any criticism, feedback, questions, concerns, anything you'd like to possibly have us address, we can't promise we're going to take on every topic that people suggest, but we have gotten some good suggestions, and we'll be taking a look at that as well. In addition to all of those other events in this show, there's a Thursday happy hour at the Dog and Duck at 17th and Guadalupe. That's also open as well. And after this program's over, we're on the air till 4:30. We get together and go to dinner, and we're going to Threadgills. We're back at Threadgills again on Riverside. We're on the air till 4:30. We'll be done there about 5 o'clock and stay till 7-ish, give or take. As I mentioned, anybody is welcome to come down there, but if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. Just send us an email or call. The one thing that I wanted to start off with today, this is a news story that's just gotten crazy, and I'm going to shorten it up as much as possible. College student goes into Mass, walks over, gets his communion wafer, and goes back and sits down. Now, the Catholic Church is now, most of them, instead of putting it in your mouth on your tongue, they put it right in your hand, and you're supposed to immediately consume it. I think they do this for sanitation reasons,
That's
although
correct.
if you're really, putting the body of Christ in your mouth, do you really have to be concerned about sanitation? I mean, is your God so weak and feeble that he can't, like, also sanitize the biscuit in the priest's hands? But so anyway, he goes back and he sits down, and somebody saw him. Somebody saw him not immediately eat the cracker. And the policy of this church is, I kid you not, to physically restrain anybody who attempts to not eat the cracker. And so a woman came over and grabbed his wrist and restrained him, tried to pry open his hand to get the cracker out. And finally he put it in his mouth to satisfy all of them, then left and took it back out of his mouth and put it in a plastic bag and held on to it. Now, while I find all this incredibly amusing, Catholics didn't. Who knew?
Who knew?
And the part about this that, while I find all this funny, I also find it incredibly sad because Catholics have lost their damn minds over this cracker. Going on television, equating it with kidnapping. I kid you not, kidnapping.
Because Jesus is a real human, and the cracker turned into Jesus.
The cracker turned into Jesus, and it's kidnapping, or it's close to kidnapping. Well, why don't you go tell that to the parents of kidnapped victims? And instead of crying over this cracker, where's the outrage over pedophile priests and all the other problems that your church is doing, like supporting global gag rules and failing to and working in opposition to proper sex prophylactic sex education, things like that? Where's the outrage over that? Somebody steals a cracker and you guys lose your minds. And Bill Donahue from the Catholic League is way up at the top of the lost your mind list. So PZ Myers of the Feringula blog, who was on a nonprofit show recently, decided to take him to task for this and just said, hey, it's a cracker, get over it. And made fun of them and said that, if somebody could score him some consecrated communion wafers, he'd be happy to desecrate them and post them about them on his blog. And I support PZ for that. But the Catholics went nuts again and started a letter writing campaign to the president of the university where PZ works, possibly asking him to be fired or lose his job or whatever. So some of us...
That's a tactic that the Catholic League uses.
Well, I mean, what he did was he exercised protected speech. They can't possibly go after him for that. So they're going to try and affect his livelihood by going after him. And, they're going to throw their weight around and try and strong-arm a university. And I'm sure the president of the university has received threats of removing students and denying grants and all kinds of other things. I hope the university stands firm and supports him because PZ Myers is a credit to the University of Minnesota Morris and to scientists everywhere, to anybody who's embracing reason. But, so what I did today, I did not get my hands on pre-consecrated wafers. I'm going to do that. I'm also going to encourage other people to do that in what I dubbed yesterday as the Eucharist Challenge. But it turns out there's also another Eucharist Challenge that's on YouTube that was posted yesterday. So rather than fight the guy over the idea, the thing is,
Matt Dillahunty.
This is just me, and it's for my own interest to see who can do it and whether they can get away with it. The number one rule: do not, under any circumstances, disrupt someone's church service. I can't stress that enough. I won't even consider any videos or talk about in any kind of positive light, no matter how creative you are, if you disrupt their church service. These people have a constitutional right to exercise their crazy beliefs. They need to, if you go in there and act as a disruption, you make the rest of us look bad during their service. All you need to do is go in to a Catholic Mass and walk out with one of those after it's been consecrated by a priest, because that's, of course, when it becomes the host. It becomes part of the body of Christ. Now, I don't think DNA analysis and other lab tests will show that these ever become anything more than the bits of wheat flour and water, tasteless crap that they are. But if you can get out with one and videotape yourself with it, you can post it on YouTube and send it. Also, you can get creative. If you could get like a whole bunch of these, you could maybe mold them into like a little Jesus voodoo doll. Because we got, so I actually, being an ordained minister, I'm going to go ahead and on my own consecrate. I have a whole bunch of them here. I don't know if you can see it.
How'd you get to be ordained, man?
Online, 3 minutes, Universal Life Church, easy as pie. I can forgive sins. According to the website, I can forgive sins, conduct marriages, funeral ceremonies, and I'm going to consecrate communion wafers. So I consecrate thee. All of you. I know priests do it one at a time, but I'm way better. So now we've got consecrated communion wafers, which, here, would you
thank you.
Try one? We're going to be rude and eat on TV, but they're pretty tasteless pieces of crap, really.
Like cardboard.
They are. And by the way, just to prove that I'm magic, that atheism is magic, and that these crackers are truly consecrated now, I'm gonna go ahead and you can zoom in a little more. I want to make sure that no, not that. Yeah, if you rip these crackers now that I've consecrated them, they are so unholy because of the atheist blessing that they will actually go back together just like that into one piece.
Ooh,
But yeah, it's I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this. By the way, Jesus goes good with cheese.
Okay.
Got some good queso on that.
Okay, what body part was that?
It wasn't an organ. That one actually, I don't like organs. I mean, I'm hoping to avoid like spleen and liver and things like that. I think that was an earlobe.
Oh, okay.
A little waxy.
Well, it's easy for me to understand why the Catholic Church and the Catholic people are so up in arms about this, and the reason is pretty simple. Is that the Catholic Church has for many, many years run a scam where they give out crackers and they get money for crackers. It's a cracker scam of some sort, right? They bless the crackers and they give it out.
Crackety-ass cracker.
And they make lots of money this way. That's how they operate. And if somebody's coming and grabbing their crackers and doing something and showing people like we are that they're just crackers, then they kind of lose some potential income. And I imagine they'll be mad at us today for doing this very same thing.
Oh well.
And you can see this played out in the last election with John Kerry. Remember, they were saying, "Oh, well, John Kerry, you're a Catholic. We're going to withhold the crackers from you if you don't, vote for I think it was abortion issue, right? The Catholic Church wanted to control abortion. John Kerry said, it's somebody else's decision on that, and they said, "Oh, we're going to withhold crackers from you." So he puts him in a catch-22 situation. Either he's a bad Catholic, right, because he's not getting his crackers, or he's lying about being a Catholic because he's not under the power of the church. So either way, he's a loser, right? So my take on this would be to vote for somebody who doesn't have this conflict of interest, right? Get that out of there entirely.
So my roommate was raised Catholic. And like most people who were raised Catholic, he eventually ended up taking communion. But he was telling me that he couldn't do it in first grade because he hadn't passed the communion test, which I think is like some kind of IQ test, but I'm not sure. And in second grade, he was allowed to do it. And he said the whole thing was,
right?
Yeah, the whole thing was that, he didn't really understand it, didn't care about it, but everybody else got to do this, and he felt excluded.
Peer pressure,
so he couldn't wait till he could come get one of these tasty wheat. What happens if you're allergic to wheat?
Yeah, celiac disease.
And the Catholic Church evidently requires that they be made of wheat. Although maybe they.
We were talking at breakfast. Are they meat or are they vegetable?
They're vegetable first, and then after I consecrate them,
they become meat.
They become meat, and
so the vegetarians are excluded here too, right? Not just the celiac.
I was a toenail. You can't always get the best bits of Jesus. Christ on a cracker, that one was bad. Let me try a different one. But you want to go ahead and, since somebody who's already called in early.
We can hit a phone call. This is a good time to do it.
Let's go ahead and take a phone call. Is this Ben?
Yep.
How you doing, Ben?
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to say a long-time listener, well, at least for the whole summer. I love the show. I think it's great.
Thanks. Where are you calling from?
Stuff out there. Southern Ontario, actually.
Okay.
So I'm a university student in Northern Ontario for most of the year. And like I said, I've been watching this for a little while, and I've actually got some friends to come and watch it, and people are really loving the show. And what I wanted to call about is one friend who was raised a Catholic. He recently became an atheist, I think through a lot of discussions with me, a lot of his own experience, and actually reading about it and finding out the ridiculousness of it.
Right.
And recently he was just diagnosed with kidney cancer a few days ago. And it's possibly terminal. He has to go through many extremely painful treatments, and it's been very difficult for him, of course, and for me as well. And so I wanted to call in and say, what is your take on death through an atheist worldview? Because he kind of looks at me as a philosophy student and, you know, a really strong atheist to try to give him some insights, but I'm a little lost here. I've given him the Mark Twain quote about, you know, I've been dead for billions of years, and
right.
the Richard Dawkins from Unweaving the Rainbow, that, you know, we're the lucky ones, but it seems sometimes almost empty. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what you really think about it.
Yeah, it may not be enough. It may not be enough for a lot of people, and I've talked to people who say that the primary reason they're believers, and in this case I wouldn't necessarily call them believers, I'd call them people who act as if they believe, is because they have a fear of what happens after you're dead. It just seems like such a waste that, you know, once you're dead it's over, when there's this alternate version that I consider to be a fairy tale, that you get to keep on living forever. Who wouldn't enjoy that? Who wouldn't prefer that? Mm-hmm. Maybe not forever. I mean, I think things diminish in value.
I might get a little bored.
But it may not be consoling. It may not be joyous, wonderful, comforting news. But that doesn't mean it's not true.
Right.
As far as we know, this is the one and only shot you've got at life, and as unfortunate it is for your friend who's been diagnosed with a potentially, you know, lethal disease or condition, yeah, it sucks. I mean, it really, really sucks. And if he'd be happier with platitudes and people, you know, talking about how he's going to live forever, and don't worry, you know, when you're dead, you know, everything will be much better, and you'll be in heaven with the angels, and you know, you won't have to eat Jesus crackers anymore. You can just talk to Jesus right there.
Well, it's not all you know, fun and games, right? The religions play on the fear of death too, right? They say, well, you know, if you don't do the right things, you're going to go burn in hell, and if you don't believe or whatever, so they're playing on that.
Yeah.
And you know, we have no reason to believe you're going to be tortured forever when you die either. So you know, neither one of those is necessarily true. Neither one of those is helping the person, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, one of the things, of course, if you're an atheist, that not only do you you know, live your life as based on the belief that you're not going to go to heaven after you die, but also that you're not going to go to hell after you die,
right.
or be reincarnated as some lower or higher form of animal or anything like that. I don't know that there's anything you can really say. A lack of belief in the supernatural doesn't come with any promise of comfort. Mm-hmm. That type of thing is something that you find on your own that transcends atheism. And for me personally, I live my life as though it's the only one I'm going to get, because that's where the evidence points. Maybe there's an afterlife, maybe there's not, but I'm convinced that I'm living this life. And so I'm going to enjoy it as much as possible, do the most good, the least harm, try to get along with people, share experiences with people, build that up. Hopefully, memory of me will live on in other people. I will have enjoyed my time here, and when I'm dead, well, I don't think I'll probably know about it unless I'm given warning, like your friend has been. Mm-hmm. If I were to be diagnosed tomorrow with a disease that told me I had a month to live, I wouldn't be upset or mad that you know, I don't have this promise of an afterlife, because I don't think it's real. What I do is make the most of the month that I have left, and spend it with people I care about, doing things that I enjoy, and recognizing that, you know, sometimes some people get dealt the short straw. There's nothing we can do about it. And the other thing is that there's no guarantee that your friend's going to die.
That's true.
The other thing is getting beyond the superstitious nonsense that a lot of religions want to push. We can work together to improve medicine to where some of these diseases and conditions are no longer terminal.
Right. And well, one thing I was thinking of, the one thing I love about atheism and you know, rational thinking is that there's a lot less guilt in life. I find, you know, your actions, you don't have to feel as guilty about things. They're just reality. And the first time I think I've really ever felt some guilt, and I'm not sure how reasonable it is when it was right after he really deconverted, I guess you'd say, and through a lot of my my discussions with him, that this happened to him. And it's almost like, you know, I feel guilty that I've almost taken this away from him, that he had that comfort.
Well, you've taken a security blanket away, maybe from a
Right.
crying child. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. But maybe you give them a chance to see that there's another world out there, and they can make up their own meaning in their own world or in their own life, and you know, make their life meaningful, so that when they die, they will have felt like they've, you know, done something with their lives and done something good.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why I do the show, I mean, this show isn't necessarily about deconversion or converting people to away from their religious beliefs, although that's certainly a part of it. I'd be perfectly happy if the entire world embraced reason and gave up superstitious ideas. I don't think that that's plausible or likely to happen anytime soon, but I'd like that. But what I'm not going to do is go trying to take away people's belief. I'll certainly try to convince people, but I'm not going to take away hope regardless. Hope is not the same thing as faith.
Right.
And your friend can still have hope that the condition is not terminal. May or may not be true, but he needs to you know, face reality on reality's terms and come to an understanding that, yeah, it completely sucks, and he's probably going to have a much shortened life, but that the remaining time is far better spent on trying to enjoy it than moping about it or being concerned that you may have missed out on some unsubstantiated afterlife.
Well, I think also another contributing thing of discussion is that when he was undergoing a treatment a few days ago, his heart stopped and he died for 45 seconds. And he was talking to me about that experience, because it was actually interesting. About 2 weeks earlier, before he was diagnosed, we were talking about, you know, maybe what death would actually be like, and, you know, maybe you'd see some things. And he said, you know, you just fade to black and it's gone. And it seemed like he felt a little upset by that, but it almost gave him some comfort that, you know, death is not going to be that scary. It's just going to be a fade out, and, you know, you'll disappear.
That may be, and some good points there.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, we got a bunch of stuff to get to in full lines, but we appreciate the call.
All right, yeah, thanks,
and
guys. Keep the show
I
going.
hope that your friend receives the best medical care. You know, I mean, he's up in Canada, so at least he's got some options without going broke in the process or breaking family members in the process. So
that's right.
You know, if he gets better, feel free to call back in and let us know. And also, if you talk to him more about this whole death thing, you know, send me an email or call into the show and let us know how he's dealing with it. And if other people out there, other viewers, other atheists, you know, have suggestions and recommendations, please feel free to send those in as well.
All right.
One last comment while you're still on the line. I think you're doing your friend a great service by having a conversation with him about this experience that he's going to go through, and I think that's a true mark of friendship.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. And thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
So, you've got stuff to talk.
I got stuff to talk. You're going to keep chowing down.
Nibbling on Jesus, because as long as there's
you're not going to want to have dinner.
Jesus tastes good.
We're going to dinner later, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We're going to dinner at Threadgill's. I'm talking with my mouth full.
Okay. After the show, we're going to Threadgill's. We'll be there about 5:30.
That was a rib. I love ribs.
People in the audience are welcome to come down and join us. If you're wanting to come down and chat and have a nice dinner with us and have a friendly conversation, you're more than welcome to come down. We invite atheists and atheist-friendly people. So feel free. It's going to be at Threadgill's. Yeah.
Did I mention? I'm forgetful today, but of course the big #1 rule with this Eucharist Challenge thing is don't disrupt anybody's service, which means, you know, don't go screaming "I'm stealing Jesus," you know, and run out of their church. But you can film as much of it as you can. I don't imagine it'd be very easy to actually film going into a Catholic church, and we are in no way responsible for any trouble you get into. So this is basically kind of a, you know, have fun with it, man. Okay. Anyway.
All right. Parts is parts. Okay. Well, today I want to talk about. You know, it's a funny thing, you know, there were two recent state Supreme Court decisions that had something, I think, very meaningful to say about religious liberty, religious freedom, and I thought maybe I can, you know, hit both of these in one show. And it got to be that, no, they're not going to both fit in one show. So what I'm going to do is I'll do two shows back to back, or two. Next time I'm on, I'll hit the second Supreme Court decision. So the first decision was the May 15th California Supreme Court decision allowing same-sex marriage. Right, that was one pretty big decision. It's a historic decision, I think, that allows states to do that. And people had this to say about it. One person wrote, "Gay rights is just another tool in the effort not only to destroy religious freedoms, but to destroy Americanism and this nation." So you see histrionic sentiments like that. The other decision, which I want to talk about mostly today, I'll talk about the California ruling next time I'm on. This one I want to talk about the Texas Supreme Court decision. This is a June 27th decision, so it's pretty recent. That might be known as the demon influence suit. A state ruled on behalf of a church that had held a 17-year-old girl captive and did an exorcism on her twice, and she had sued for damages, but the Texas State Supreme Court threw it out on First Amendment grounds. So that's the very, very short version of it. I'll be going into a longer version of it, but both of these Supreme Court decisions have a lot to say about religious liberty, religious freedoms. The Texas Supreme Court is expanding them, and many people think that the California Supreme Court decision is contracting them. So I wanted to compare those and look at what these religious freedoms really mean and what these decisions mean. So the Texas Supreme Court case is number 05-0916. If people want to look it up online, I'm going to be quoting it from it today. I recommend looking at it. It's not terribly long. It's a little complicated. But the state Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that they would not interfere with church activities based on the free exercise clause of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, even if that free exercise clause causes harm to adherents, meaning people who are part of the faith. So here's the story. Here's what happened. This case concerns a 17-year-old girl by the name of Laura Schubert. She was 17 at the time. This case was from 1996, so it's pretty old at this point. It's actually gone through three court rulings, and the Supreme Court was the third ruling on this case. So this Laura, who was then 17, participated in a garage sale preparation with church members at her church, and everybody in this group was tired and suggestible and apparently hungry, and some sort of mania swept over them, and they became convinced that there was demon activity in the church, and they went and oiled up all of the church things with oil, for anointing oil and all this stuff, and ran around and did all this. And the next day, apparently, at the Sunday service, Laura was acting strangely. And they decided that she was possessed. This church apparently believes in demon activity and demon possession and God possession and all this stuff. So they don't really have any grounding in reality. They think that demons are coming and going in and out of them all the time. So any strange behavior is obviously related to demons. So they grabbed her and held her down for over an hour. They laid hands on her, and she struggled and begged and begged to be set free. And a few days later, a similar event happened. Now I'm going to read from the case here where they sum this up. So this later that afternoon, which is that Sunday, Laura returned to a church for another youth activity and the Sunday evening worship service. During the evening service, Laura collapsed. After her collapse, several church members took Laura to a classroom where they laid hands on her and prayed. According to Laura, church members forcibly held her arms crossed over her chest despite her demands to be freed. According to those present, Laura clenched her fists, gritted her teeth, foamed at the mouth, made guttural noises, yelled, cried, kicked, sweated, and hallucinated. These parties sharply dispute whether these actions were the cause or the result of her physical restraint. It goes on to say that church members moreover disagreed about whether Laura's actions were a ploy for attention or whether the result of spiritual activity. So those aren't the only two options, by the way. Laura stated during the episode that Satan or demons were trying to get at her. After the episode, Laura, who allegedly began telling other church members about a vision, yet her collapse and subsequent reaction to being restrained may also have been the result of fatigue and hypoglycemia. Laura had not eaten anything substantive during that day and missed sleep because of the spiritual activities of that weekend. So whatever the cause, Laura was eventually released after she calmed down and complied with requests to say the name Jesus. So that was like a code word, I guess, where they
That's her safe word.
Safe word of some sort, where if the people believed that if she could say Jesus, then she wasn't possessed.
I brought some anointing oil.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay. What do you? Let's have a look at that.
This is, I don't want to give the name of the brand or the company or anything, but they sell this in stores for $3 for a quarter ounce.
Okay.
That's a 300% markup over what you can get it at the grocery store. That's, I mean, imagine how much cheaper it is if you buy it in bulk, because all it is hand-pressed olive oil.
Okay.
That's it. That's the only ingredient. However, it comes with this nifty little booklet.
The value-added part of it.
That says, prayer of faith for administering the sick. So this is for blessing and for healing. I would imagine you could probably use it for exorcism since it's just as phony as the rest of the crap. But it says, anoint anyone or anything at any time for whatever Christian purpose with the finest oils and balms on the planet Earth, guaranteed. Now, are they guaranteeing that these are the finest oils, or are they guaranteeing that you can anoint anyone? Because if they're guaranteed, what about people who are allergic to olive oil? I mean, I guess you could still anoint them, you'd just be screwing them over.
Right.
Sending them to the hospital.
And some people are greasy enough they don't need it.
There's instructions. There's instructions in there on how to consecrate the oil.
Okay.
Because it doesn't come pre-consecrated. I'm going to go ahead and consecrate a few vials and see if I can sell them for more than the $3. But you have to
supply chain stuff.
Yeah, you have to hold the open. It has to be an open container because Jesus can't get in through these plastic safety sealed caps.
Reminds me of the Iron Chariots.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But and then you address your heavenly Father and state your authority, and then you bless it. You only have to do it once, and remember, you're blessing the oil, not the container. So every time you put new oil in there, you got to re-bless it. But the old oil is good forever. Then you draw a cross on whatever you're going to bless. I wonder if you could bless lube, like for your car. You dirty-minded people.
Well, I understand that I have a friend who grew up in Poland, and I understand the Catholic Church is very active there, and they do things like bless new cars, and they bless your radio or whatever to make sure it's going to work for a while, and bless your house and your dog and all these things. So that's part of the business.
I think I'm going to anoint some of these. The consecrated wafers. I don't know. Is it like a double negative but.
Okay.
If I anoint some of these.
Well, while you're chomping away, I'll continue on with our story about Laura. Poor Laura.
Yeah, poor Laura. I'll stop being funny for a minute because this is pretty serious.
Okay. Shall I keep going? Okay. Well, so some of these, this exorcism happened. She was held down. She was trying to get away. She couldn't get away. It was a bunch of people, kind of a mob scene. I think of it like a kind of a spiritual rape. They just decided to descend on her, do their thing to her, and she was an unwilling participant. So
at some point,
she
may have been a willing participant.
Yeah. So there's some debate about whether
seeking and things like that.
whether but we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay. So as far as her injury. I'm reading from the court ruling again. Over the next months, several psychologists and psychiatrists examined Laura, documenting her multiple symptoms such as angry outbursts, weight loss, sleeplessness, nightmares, hallucinations, self-mutilation, fear of abandonment, and agoraphobia. Despite the psychiatric counseling, Laura had become increasingly depressed and suicidal, even dropping out of her senior year of high school and abandoning her former plan to attend Bible college and pursue missionary work. Finally, in November 1996, Laura was diagnosed and suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which the doctors associated with her physical restraint of the church, June 1996. One of the expert witnesses at the trial testified that Laura would, quote, require extensive time to recover her trust in authorities, spiritual leaders, and her lifelong religious faith, unquote. Ultimately, Laura was classified as disabled by the Social Security Administration and began drawing a monthly disability check. So, whatever issues she might have had, she definitely was disabled, I think, or at least the state agreed that she was disabled. She began getting disability checks, and so on. So let's talk about the history of the suit. She ended up suing, she and her family ended up suing the church for libel, for abuse and false imprisonment, and the court at that time in 1996 awarded the family $300,000, and the church was claiming some sort of religious liberty claims at this time, and they ended up appealing, and the church ended up appealing, and in 2002 the church appealed and got the penalty to them reduced by $122,000. So the total would be $178,000, and the reduction was that they didn't believe that she would have lost future income. So there was a question of whether this disability would cause a loss of future income or not. That was the sort of the decision in the second suit, and that was the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Texas. The third suit was argued April 2007 to the Supreme Court. And it sought to, the Supreme Court actually ended up, and this is kind of complicated, they ended up separating emotional claims and physical claims, and they decided that emotional claims were of religious nature, and the physical claims, like her bruises and such, because she didn't sue on behalf of those, they were not part of the thing. So the state has decided that, well, if you wanted to sue again on the physical claims that you had and not the emotional claims, you could go ahead and do that, and there'd be no problem. But because she sued on emotional claims, and because, as we'll find out, the emotional claims end up being tangled with religion, the state ended up ruling that the two cannot be separated, and so the religious claims so it ended up being kind of a religious lawsuit, and the state ruled we can't get involved in religion, and bowed out, and actually what they did is they threw out the whole thing, so she gets no reward whatsoever. So so it's a little complicated, and I don't completely understand it, but so effectively, her damages, her award for damages for emotional injury was barred by the First Amendment, effectively, in this suit. So they ruled that the emotional harm is intangible, therefore not substantive, which I don't agree with. I mean, we have vets coming back from the war with PTSD, and their harm is not intangible and unsubstantive, right? Their harm is real. Let's see, her suit was thrown out as the justices felt it would require an inquiry into the truths or falsity of religious claims which are forbidden by the Constitution.
No.
No. Okay, go ahead. This is a good time to chat a little bit.
They're wrong.
They're wrong. Well, we have the Salem witch trials, right, where we had, back in the 1662, we had people tried as witches, and they brought in so-called spectral evidence that oh, this person's a witch because I saw a demon or whatever, and all of that has been thrown out.
She turned me into a newt.
Right, she turned me into a newt. Right, she made. Yeah, there's anyway. So
what they're saying is we can't get into this truth issue on religious grounds because that's a violation of the First Amendment, which is a crock. You're a court of law. People have to demonstrate and prove their claims and provide evidence. You don't have to accept spectral evidence, and you shouldn't, but you could accept real evidence. And anybody who could actually demonstrate that there are such things as demons who can actually possess people would have a way of getting out of this kind of claim. But if they can't demonstrate that it's real, then they can't establish that what their claim that their claim is actually true, and they should be pilloried for the type of action that they're taking against people. What's to prevent someone from saying, it is my sincere religious belief that you are possessed by leprechauns from the planet Xenu? Ooh, Scientologist. Oops. Xenu's not a planet. He's an intergalactic overlord who brought people to... Never mind. You have to pay to learn that crazy stuff. But this doesn't prevent anybody from just exercising what they say is their sincere belief and getting away with emotional trauma. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I'm not a huge fan of people who want to bring lawsuits based on emotional trauma because it's difficult to prove, religion aside. How much have you been traumatized? How can we, stick a number on this? And, does it matter? But the fact of the matter is that in the name of religion and in the name of superstition and in the name of all kinds of other things that simply aren't based on anything real, people are being traumatized and abused. We've got the various sexual abuses that are done where it's an exploitation of the power and authority that they're given, which is completely independent of the religion. The problem with the religion, especially with the Catholics who I'll eat another cracker for, is that they go and they hide these priests and they circumvent the law so that people can't get what's coming to them. But to say that we can't even look at this because it would involve us trying to analyze whether or not religious claims are true is to me an admission that everybody already knows that the religious claims aren't true. They can't possibly be proven. They couldn't possibly survive the standards of a court of law. And that's the only thing that matters because we, believe it or not, hey, Christians, I'll wake up real quick. We don't live in a Christian nation. We don't live in a Judeo-Christian nation. We don't live in a Catholic nation, a Protestant nation. We live in a secular nation with a secular constitution that guarantees the rights and freedoms of everybody. Everybody, me, you, I have, just like you Christians are free not to believe the Muslim claim and the Jewish claim, so am I. And the Jews are free not to believe the Christian claim and the Muslim claim, and so am I. So I'm free to disregard all of you. That's the way it works. And if you can't demonstrate that something's true, it's got no place in a court of law. The mere fact that you're unable to demonstrate this doesn't mean that the courts shouldn't address the issue. If you've abused somebody and they come in and say, hey, these guys hurt me and traumatized me, granted, you may have to bear some responsibility for being sucked in, but we don't want to portray everybody as gullible victims because the vast majority of people believe some of this stuff on some level. It's like not everybody's going nuts over these crackers, but there are people who think that once a priest blessed this, it turns into the actual body of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And they cried kidnapping. Are you telling me that your God is so feeble? First of all, he's not omniscient, so he didn't see this shit coming. But he's so feeble that he's willing to put himself in the cracker and be kidnapped? What kind of God is that? That's not all powerful.
Oh, it's just the more you think about it, the sillier. That's cheesy.
And so is this.
Yuck, yuck, yuck.
They're not barred by the First Amendment from investigating any truth claim. They just know that nobody could possibly establish religious claims.
Well, their ruling is more of the lines of, because these people believe it as religion, it's therefore protected, so, which is a really awful line of thought in my mind.
Yeah.
Because there really was harm done to her. So, to be fair to the Supreme Court, the Texas State Supreme Court, they did say, we do not mean to imply that under the cloak of religion, persons may, with impunity, commit intentional torts upon the religious adherents. Okay, so they do say that, but in reality, the practical matter is if your claim is somehow intermingled with religion, then the state is going to keep a hands off to it.
Yeah, well, that's BS too. That would be like me saying that religions are just superstitions, and by saying that, I in no way mean that they aren't true. That's what the court just did. Yeah, we're not saying that we're going to offer to provide protection against harm based on sincere religious beliefs, but that's what we just did.
So I have a number of thoughts on this that I kind of want to talk about, and then we can switch to callers. First off, at some level, the child and the family hurt themselves, and that is they themselves couldn't distinguish demon harm from real harm. So they went in and believed all this demon stuff, but went in and was kind of making a half-assed case against the church, and they really couldn't quite get their story straight. And in fact, they ended up...
You know why?
Why?
Because they believe this stuff.
They believe it. They believe it at some level, right? So in a sense, their own beliefs... Oh, you get some bad parts?
A bone.
Oh. Yeah, you have to spit that out. So even the doctors that examined her couldn't separate the injuries from that were due to secular causes and religious causes. They tried to do that, and so the whole thing became very muddled, and so to be fair to the Supreme Court, they had a difficult case where they had a very, very confusing sort of claim being made. But okay, so the child and the family may have hurt themselves in the sense by buying into this, but how did they buy into it? Well, the earlier brainwashing by the church and their religion caused them to lose touch with reality, caused them to believe this stuff. So in a sense, by brainwashing this kid and this family enough, they ended up sort of winning, because they ended up sort of so detached from reality they couldn't make any substantive claim against the church. So by brainwashing, the brainwashing helped the church use her as a prop in rituals, extract tithes, and eventually evade their responsibility to her. So the church did nothing to help her.
Right.
In the whole episode did nothing to help her, but they helped themselves at her expense by both getting tithe and evading any sort of criminal thing. And they also got helped in a weird way because they evaded a criminal suit. You know, this whole thing was a result of what's the word? There's the criminal suit, and then there's the suit where
civil suit?
Civil suit, right. So this whole thing was about a civil suit, but they never filed criminal claims against the church because they were church members, and that would be a bad thing to do. So they were sort of browbeaten, I think, into not, you know, this is false imprisonment of a child, okay, folks. So this is really a criminal case as far as I'm concerned, and this other thing is kind of because that never went through. This is kind of trying to address those harms. So the true meaning of religious liberty here is basically the churches get to do whatever they want as long as they brainwash people enough. So the church, in fact, if you read between the lines in this ruling, the courts never separated religious belief from emotional manipulation. Those two are synonymous in this ruling. So in their opinion, since religious belief is protected, emotional manipulation, emotional abuse of people is also protected. So
religion is emotional abuse and emotional manipulation. So
yeah. So that's how I read it.
Separate the two.
You know, when you read that, that's what I get out of it. So a couple more things here. I want to talk about adherence and consent. So this ruling was sort of about adherence, and there's a quote, but religious practices that might offend the religious rights or sensibilities of a non-believer outside the church are entitled to greater latitude when applied to an adherent within the church. So really? They're sort of saying that you know, if you're doing shocking things outside the church, that's one thing, but if you're doing it within the church with adherence, that's a completely different thing. That's what the ruling says.
So it would be wrong to forcibly have sex with somebody who's walking down the street, but it's okay to force your wife to have sex. It's not rape? Really? Are you sure?
Right.
What makes the position of being an adherent a loophole?
Right, and how do you determine who's an adherent? Is it somebody with a cross around their neck? Is it somebody who has to be a member of the church? Is it somebody who came into the church to listen to a service? Is it somebody walking outside? Is it somebody who got killed during one of these rituals and they decided to say he was an adherent just to cover their asses?
I thought we'd pretty much come to this whole consensus that across the board, no means no. And even if she had willingly been a participant of exorcisms before, and even started as a willing participant to exorcism, to that particular one, the second she says, no, get your hands off me, I don't know, get your hands off her.
Right, this is the consent.
What's so hard about that?
Right, she did not give consent, or at least she didn't at the end.
Well, you know, people who are possessed by Satan are certainly not going to give consent. Satan doesn't want to give out. He's controlling them.
There's a catch-22.
Yeah, prove that in a court of law.
So I think that there is a comparison to be made here with rape. You know, although she wasn't physically raped, I think that emotionally she was.
The stress and trauma that people have gone through in sexual rapes and other abuses. We're not equating anything, but there's a similarity. And some of the emotional abuse that goes on, you know, both with regard to exorcisms and with regard to just some of the things that happen just generally within religions is, I think, incredibly traumatizing. I think teaching 4- and 5-year-olds that they're going to burn in hell forever if they don't do X, Y, and Z, or if they don't, you know, believe X, Y, Z, I think that is torture. I think that is the mental equivalent of rape. It's emotional abuse. we've grown as a society where once upon a time, if somebody was beating their kids and you thought it was excessive, you kept your mouth shut because that's their kids and that's their business and you don't get involved. And then we finally started waking up to the idea that not everybody's a fit parent, not everybody's sane, and not everybody knows how much is too much, if any is perhaps too much. But so we establish rules about child abuse, and if we start off with just physical abuse, nobody wants to pay attention. You can yell at your kid and belittle your kid, and that's not really abuse. And then finally we start waking up to the idea that yeah, it is. Telling your kid that they're worthless and unloved and useless and destined for hell and they're crap,
wretches.
All kinds of horrible things does cause long-term damage to the individual. It's emotional abuse, and now we recognize that. And so now we do what we can to prevent that. Now, it's not easy. These aren't questions where to draw the line.
They're not black and white issues, right?
Where do the rights of the parents end and the responsibilities of the state begin? Those are questions that are never easy. But we're getting better and better about it, and we're trying whatever we can to be both reasonable and respectful of the rights of parents while protecting children. And yet the one area where this has traditionally been loopholed or grandfathered through is religion. And what the Texas State Supreme Court did was extend and continue that loophole, that protection, under the guise of not wanting to trample on people's First Amendment rights. So, I guess if the next time Child Protective Services comes over to your house because you're the type of asshat who physically and emotionally abuses your children and somebody's reported you, just tell them that it's your sincere religious belief that you need to make your child as miserable as possible. Maybe we can get another court case that'll reverse this moronic stuff that we've got now. But
yeah. So, you've hit on this whole consent thing, and I think one thing that really needs to be driven home here is that Laura was a minor, right? She could not really give consent, in my opinion, to this thing, right? She was a child. And her parents were not present throughout this. They were apparently using...
And I'd say that minor or not, she's the only one who could have.
Yeah.
If you're a parent, you should never be allowed to give consent for your child to be traumatized.
Yeah,
sorry, she's the only one who could.
So just a quick break. We're going to take calls here in about 3 minutes or so. You guys want to maybe put up the number behind the scenes there?
It's up.
It's up? Oh, it's always up, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. We're organized. Okay. So the state completely ignored the fact that she was a minor in this whole thing. And so it effectively, by not saying anything, the state effectively said that it's okay to emotionally abuse minors in this case. So and I find that very disturbing. I find that probably the most disturbing part of this is that basically if you want to apply your religious stuff to minors, you don't have any reason to stop that. So let's think about some of the recent things that have happened and how that might have changed things. In the Fundamentalist Fundamentalist Church of the Latter-day Saints case, the Mormon cult. They brought up children to be child brides in their religion. So and apparently these kids are more or less willing to be brides, and so this is very much protected by this new ruling, as far as I'm concerned. The Catholic Church and the pedophiles, if you claim that you're not doing harm to the kid, or you invent some sort of religious reason for this, like you're infusing them with the power of the Holy Spirit, then maybe that's okay.
The only way we can get Jesus out of, or the Satan out of him, is to put some more of us into him.
Right. It's not hard to imagine, somebody inventing a religious reason to go abuse a kid. Or how about reparative therapy for gay kids? Schilling brought that up. I think that's a very good point. I mean, these kids are not going to be willing to go and be deprogrammed for something, and in all cases, these things cause harm to children. So I'd like to see children removed from these potentially emotionally abusive situations because they cannot consent and they need protection. So I would like to see laws where children cannot be brought into religions until their age of consent, but that's never going to happen.
No.
That's what I'd like to see. So just to wrap up here, in Texas, the notion of religious freedom means that churches can get away with all manner of emotional abuse, if they're victims or parishioners, whether they're children or not. So I personally think you might be better off thinking for yourself and staying out of these churches.
I couldn't possibly agree more.
Okay, so let's take some calls.
Yeah, so we've got, is it Matthew?
Yes.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
We kept you on the phone a long time.
Yeah, you stayed on hold for a long time, so thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Anyway, my question is, I'm not quite sure of how to classify myself. I consider myself an atheist because I don't believe in a conscious creator, but at the same time, I believe in an afterlife. So does that make me still an atheist?
Sure.
Sure?
Under the definitions that I'd use, yeah. I mean, Buddhists generally don't believe in a God in any conventional sense, and would be atheist, and yet they still believe in an afterlife with regard to reincarnation. I think you're wrong about the afterlife thing.
Let me flip it around, though. A lot of people, most people who would call themselves atheists probably wouldn't believe in an afterlife.
Yeah, most of the
so maybe that's why you're fishing for a term for yourself.
It's probably not the most. It's accurate in that you don't believe in a God, which is all atheism actually means. It's probably not the best term to describe who you are and what you do or don't believe, because its usage is so often tied to rational atheism, which would be inclusive of a rejection of supernatural claims. But it depends. What kind of afterlife do you believe in, and why?
That's kind of complicated. I don't know. It's sort of like I'm almost embarrassed to say. So I mean, I couldn't say it. You know.
Okay. Well, I didn't ask just to embarrass you. It was mostly curiosity. My position pretty much is that the only time you should believe something is when you have sufficient evidence to justify that belief. And I don't say this to pick on you, because your answers have been more honest and more clear than a lot of other callers that we get. But we get people who say they believe something, and then when you ask them why, they have no reason. They have no evidence. They have no justification. And it becomes more along the lines of, you can almost hear them think, gee, why do I believe that?
Right, but it's like they got it out of a Cracker Jack box, and they liked it and kept it.
Yeah. And so I won't.
So to be fair, I think thinking through your beliefs with regard to these things and examining the evidence that's there and these sorts of things takes years. It's taken me 7, 8, 9 years to do all this, and the more I learn about religious beliefs, the less of a believer I am. So I think to do that honestly requires some work on your part, and I think it's worthwhile to do that work. It would be my advocation is to explore that and get to the point where someday you can say, I do believe this, and I do believe it for this reason. And I think that would be a worthwhile journey for you and for other people to do.
I'd also recommend that you not get too hung up on labels. I mean,
right.
You are who you are. I mean, there's 50,000 labels I could probably apply to myself, based on religious things, philosophical issues, any number of mix and match, and I'm me. I'm my own mix of whatever. I happen to use the atheist label because it's true, it's useful, and I find that, in my opinion, not only are religions false, but they're harmful. And what I'd like to do here is, have discussions about that, to say, what do you believe and why, and find out whether I agree or whether I don't. And if I don't, perhaps I'd be able to explain why in a way that would convince somebody that their beliefs are unfounded. But
well, you said before that you don't believe in an afterlife because you think it's kind of pointless to think about those types of things.
No. That's not remotely what I said.
Oh, no, but Matt said that before, though. He said that, he doesn't believe in an afterlife because he thinks life's too short or something like that. And
No, I've never said anything like that. What I've said, and if I have, then it was a huge misstatement. I don't believe in an afterlife because I've seen no evidence to convince me that any kind of afterlife exists. That's the reason why.
And the consequence is, because there's no afterlife, we live life to its fullest now because this is all that we get.
Yeah. How I live my life as if there is no afterlife, because it would be a waste of my time to live as if there were when there's no evidence that any such thing exists. And that's what I find so many people are doing. You talk to people, and it's all about this life is some kind of trial run or soul filter before you get to the real life that makes this one invaluable. That is what I would consider to be a waste of time. To waste time living towards something that's going to happen after you die without any evidence that it's going to happen. But the reason that I don't believe in an afterlife is because I've not been presented with any evidence that would support such a belief.
Right, I understand. I do have a second question, if that's okay, if there's enough time.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, well, I've been kind of considering this idea in my head that maybe religion is almost parallel to the time when it was created. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, the Jewish beliefs in the Old Testament, in the ways that they kind of lecture people about sex and other different kind of morals, was in a way to protect people, because back in those days, you know, they didn't have a lot of contraceptives or anything like that, and
well, you know, a lot of the wisdom of that time ended up swept up into religions. Religions are they're big, messy bundles of stuff, and some of it is theology having to do with the afterlife and spiritual claims, and some of it is food advice, and some of it is practical wisdom about how to have a good relationship with your wife, and some of it is just utter nonsense, and it's all bundled up in together. And so, yeah, you are going to find that with the religions, you're going to find bits and pieces of the culture of that time embedded in there. So yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, well, anyway, you guys have a great day.
Thanks, man. Appreciate the call.
Take care.
Holy cow, Don, look at this. Each of these turns into like some part of the body. Can you guys get on this?
Yeah. You find something interesting?
Well, I don't know that we can't actually probably show this one on TV. I'm not sure which part of Jesus. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Wait.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. So we're not quite sure what part that was.
Well, there's the force gun.
Uh-oh. Gee. Was he Jewish? I'm confused. Oh, they weren't consecrated. That's the problem. No.
If he existed, he was Jewish, but he probably wasn't circumcised.
Oh, yeah?
But that's a big long story.
Well, Moses wasn't circumcised. But you
Until
guys did a whole
God
show
came
on
to
circumcision.
kill him.
By the way, there was a whole episode on circumcision by one of our audience members, Jen, who's here. And you can go watch that on YouTube. Or not, Google Video, rather.
Yeah, we covered circumcision.
Okay. Let's take another call. What do you
Sure.
think?
We got Chuck?
Yes.
How you doing?
Just fine. Hey, I just wanted to talk about the Supreme Court decision. First of all, I just want to say that that this country is based on the separation of church and state, and I think that, and I really believe this, I think that if we were to pick any one single thing that has made this country the great country that it is, that is going to be in the top two. Okay. The separation of church and state, so that our government is able to do its thing and let the church do its thing. And I'm wondering how much of this Supreme Court decision is really based on they're just saying, look, we're going to stay out of your business from now, and hopefully the church is going to stay out of the government's business. And see,
I don't think you can expect that,
because the church is constantly trying to get their foot in the door, trying to put their nose, look in your window and see what you're doing. They want to impose their will on this country.
Absolutely.
And I am totally against the church for that reason. if they want to go to church and bow their heads and say whatever it is that makes them feel good,
eat crackers,
that's fine. But don't try to impose your will on me. And so I'm wondering how much of that Supreme Court decision is kind of based on this separation of church and state, because that is very important to me, that we keep the church and the state separate.
Well, the decision was based, I would say, primarily on the free exercise clause, which is one of the clauses in the First Amendment, that basically the state should not interfere with church doings, is the gist of it, right? We very often talk about the Establishment Clause, which has to do with whether the state is promoting religion itself. But this is the other way around, I think that they were very conscious of that, and I think that they went a little overboard with it. I think they gave too much power or too much leeway to this church to do what it wanted in the name of religious liberty. So I think they went too far.
Okay. All right. Well, and also on the subject of circumcision, I think the Jews, I think they got that right. I mean, all of the women that I've talked to, they prefer a circumcision. So maybe they actually got something right.
Yeah, and
it's all just a fad.
If you go to other countries where a smaller portion of the population are circumcised, you'll find that women prefer uncircumcised penises.
Oh,
really? By the way, it's conditioning. It's what becomes the accepted norm, what looks normal, what Daddy had. Hopefully, not too much of what Daddy had, but yeah, I know plenty of people who have said that from an aesthetic point of view, they prefer a circumcised penis, and yet there are others who prefer an uncircumcised. But preference about looks, not a justification for that, in my opinion. I might prefer.
Not if you're going to do it on a child.
And also, as far as the afterlife goes, of course, I'm an atheist. There is no God, there is no heaven, there is no hell, there's no. But I really do believe that there is something after this life. I mean, if the way it's always been is, you die, you fall down, you rot, or the animals eat you, the worms eat you, the birds eat you, you go through their digestive systems, and you are pooped out onto the ground.
Sounds horrible.
And you become a part of nature. And who's to know that maybe later on, you might turn into a tree and a fruit, and somebody eats you, and then you turn into sperm, and you're back again. And anyway,
that's true. That's true of the atoms and such in your body, but I'm not sure it's true of you and your identity as it is today. So
there's a questionable area there of when do you stop being you?
Yeah, well, when I die, as far as I'm concerned, when I'm dead, I'm stopped
that's
being
pretty much when I'm signing off too.
Right.
And also, there's another thing that I hear people talking about all the time. It's this soul,
Yep.
As atheists, so do we have a soul or not, or is there such a thing as a soul, or is this just
as an atheist, you need to make up that decision on your own, right? There's no atheist dogma, so and I would answer it, for myself that I don't know of any evidence for it. I think it's a pleasant idea that you might live forever, or that you might be able to talk to your dead wife or your dead children or your dead parents or whatever. And that souls allow you to do that. I think it's a very comforting idea, but there really isn't any evidence for it. All the evidence that we have is that when our brains are harmed or compromised or impaired, we become less of a human being. We become less of who we are. And we are effectively, our minds are a product of our brain, And when our brain dies or ceases to function or becomes intoxicated or becomes injured, then we lose part of our mind or all of our mind in that case, and we lose ourselves. Right?
Everything that makes you you, every attribute that's ever been kind of glommed onto this idea of the soul can be identified as a function of the brain. There are plenty of people who've suffered traumatic brain injuries that have caused memory loss, dramatic personality shifts. If who you are as a person, all of these things of, the idea of a soul kind of piloting the body is nonsense if a good shock will reset your personality, reset your brain. You've got confusing conditions like synesthesia and things like that, where you have things have their own colors and smells, numbers do, and things like that. But we have plenty of examples of people who are living right now who've gone through that trauma and completely rewritten who they are, or have had to start over from scratch. Complete amnesia. From a religious standpoint, how absurd is that? Hey, I was a fundamentalist Christian until I got shocked by lightning and had my personality reset, and then I discovered that Allah is really God, and now I'm a Muslim until my next shock. Yeah. I don't see any. Not only do I not see any room for a soul in who we are, I don't see any need to posit one in the first place. It seems a lot more reasonable that everything that we would normally attribute to our personality, who we are, the things that a soul gets credit for, are functions of the brain. And the mystical, supernatural aspects of the soul, its ability to leave the body and travel on to alternate planes and realities, that's all stuff that somebody would have to demonstrate. There's no sense in saying, well, the brain can't do that if you can't demonstrate that that is real.
Okay, well, you know what, now that you mention it, about the only time I feel soul is when I'm half drunk anyway.
And that's why I'm...
And another thing I wanted to say is there was another show that I've seen on the public access here, and I watch a lot of public access, and I never miss the atheist experience.
All right.
But there's a lot of church on this public access.
Yes, there is.
And so why? Every time there's this one guy, it seems like a lot of them are just there up on the stage, and they really don't have, from what I've watched about it, they really don't seem to have an audience. They're just there. They're acting like they have an audience. They're acting like they're preaching to, a bunch of people out there, but, just from what I'm seeing there, it doesn't look like there's really an audience out there.
Well, so we don't know whether we have an audience sometimes too. So
I know, today, but you don't pretend to have an audience sitting right out there in front of you either.
Today we have actually 8 people watching the show in the audience, so I'm just totally amazed.
As a matter of fact, since I've been hogging them, I have all these consecrated communion wafers up here. If y'all would like to come up and, I mean, you can walk in front of the camera, I don't care. But you can come up and get your, I bless you, my children. There's one.
Well, see, I didn't even know. You mean we can actually come down and watch the show? I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Well, these are
all in remembrance of me.
Okay. Everybody here is an ACA member.
Yeah.
So these are part of.
He's a former host.
He's a former host. Here's Ashley. Okay.
Okay, and now another thing. Let me ask you. Did you see? Hey, there's an atheist. Hey, did you see now, one of those other church shows, there's 2 guys sitting there talking, and they're saying that it's a rerun. I've seen it several times, but they keep saying, they start off, we were going to debate the atheists, but the atheists didn't show up. Have you seen those guys?
They used to air the rebroadcast. I think they're several years old. They used to air the rebroadcast a few weeks ago before our show.
What group was this?
I don't know. If somebody sees that show and there's some way to contact them, let me know, because I'll show up.
Yeah, well, it's a rerun, so,
I've personally gone on one of the
playing the same show over and over, but...
and Ashley went on the Resurrection show.
Maybe that's... I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But also, anyway, I'll shut up now, and but I just want to definitely make the point, we need to keep the church and the state separate. I mean, that is what has made this country the great country that it is. And if you let the church get in the middle of the government, it'll just get. They'll just screw it up even any more than it already is. You know what I mean?
I agree.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
As a reminder, and by the way, I don't advocate that anybody do anything destructive to anything except crackers. Crackers you can have fun with. Break them. I'm gonna.
Okay. While you're doing that, let me just mention
Dinner.
Oh yeah, we have dinner coming up. Yeah.
Because Chuck could come down and join us for dinner.
Yeah, he
didn't even know you could show up in the studio.
You'd be welcome to join us for dinner.
We ain't scared. You can come down here and watch us live. You can come down and eat dinner with us. You can do anything you want.
So we're going to dinner at Threadgill's. We'll be there around 5.
Mm-hmm.
Come and join us. Come sit with us. Another thing he was saying is, what was he saying?
I don't know. I interrupted you and you
I lost my train of thought again. I'm over 40. I'm losing my train of thought.
Sweet. I'm the younger person on the stage.
Okay, all right.
So we didn't. I don't know. Evidently, the Catholics are so incensed that they're all forming a mob outside, or they just didn't happen to be watching today. But damn, these bits of
we didn't get
Jesus.
any calls on the cracker thing.
It's all right. You wanted to touch on something else a little bit. And we've got like 14 minutes left. There's more calls coming in. The phone number's right there. But while we're waiting for this to get screened, did you want to?
Oh, not
is it too
really. Because it's one of these things that it's a kind of a big unit.
Well, let me talk about this other thing.
Okay.
I don't have the details. Maybe somebody else here has the details. In addition to this exorcism case, there's a new case where this guy went to kind of a revival / faith healer thing, and they did the laying on of hands type, and he fell back, and nobody caught him.
Right. Who knew he was going to fall?
So he's suing. And on the one hand, I hope he rakes them through the coals, and on the other hand, we'd just be giving money to somebody who was dumb enough to go to a faith healer.
Right. They'll all blow it in a week anyway. Right.
There's this other faith healer from Canada who's currently operating out of Florida, who need a guy in the stomach. The guy's got stage 3 or stage 4 pancreatic cancer, colon cancer. Need him in the stomach. Then had the nerve to ask him how he felt while he was on the stage writhing in pain.
That's callous.
I guess.
That's pretty callous.
Why not just give him a cracker?
Right.
Maybe
make it all better.
Bless the cracker with a little bit of this handy-dandy olive oil, which you can buy from me from $27.99. No, I'm just kidding.
So, I'm personally very kind of annoyed with faith healers because it's one thing to be full of crap, right? That's one thing. But what they do is they encourage people to believe that they've been healed when they haven't. And it encourages people to not seek medical treatment that they need, and I think that's a tremendous disservice.
Yeah.
So I have no real love of faith healers for that reason.
Yeah, there's as I was mentioning before,
these miracle cures, the snake oil crap that you have over here, it's the same deal, right?
Hope is a good thing, and I may be convinced, although not completely sure, that there may be cases where false hope is even beneficial.
In some cases.
In some cases. But false hope, or even hope, that prevents action that could benefit somebody, that's
detrimental.
Yes.
That's detrimental. Yeah.
If you would rather pray, and there are people who do this, they take their kids or their loved ones to faith healers and pray over them instead of seeking medical treatment.
We've had a number of those cases lately.
There's those parents who, in my opinion, murdered their daughter, who was diabetic and could have been easily cured.
Yeah, they know how to treat diabetes these days.
She dies. I mean, how many of these stories like that do we have to actually hear before we start changing the rules on what you can do in the name of your sincere religious beliefs? I mean,
am I on?
You're on, Mike. How you doing?
Okay. I was going to say, this is a good segue because you were talking about false hope and its benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that I was wondering if it troubles you, the atheist community, and you two in person, if people started becoming atheists in droves, if it just became a trend, and they quit clinging to their false hopes. And you're talking about it preventing actions like the, people going to the doctor, which is something I would do. But it might also, religion also prevents bad actions like, rape and
how?
General mayhem.
Are you saying that no rapist has been religious?
No.
Then religion doesn't do anything to prevent rape, so we can toss that out.
It's not a sweeping generalization. I'm saying that it's a deterrent. I mean, it kind of keeps people in check when they think, well, I better, my God's going to look.
Well, religions give you a kind of this fake reason for not doing bad things, right? But there are good enough real reasons to not do bad things. Shouldn't that be enough?
It isn't for. I'm saying for the less intelligent, the heathens of our society. I was at a bus stop yesterday, and I was listening to these two men talk, and they were, just kind of, just generally unintelligent dudes. And, but one of them had obviously just gotten out of jail, and he was talking to another guy about, well, you got to. To the other guy, who I guess apparently also got out of jail another day, and they said, well, you got to watch yourself now because Jesus is going to. Was watching you, and the devil's watching. So at some point along the way, he got this, dose of good old religion here, where now it's going to. I mean,
yeah.
I have an analogy. I want to.
The argument you're giving is, religion's okay because it keeps the kind of unwashed masses in line, and I've heard this. I've heard this before. I've heard this sort of argument, and there's a grain of truth to it, but I'm kind of unhappy with it. One of the reasons is if you get all these unwashed masses doing something crazy like, doing this rape of this girl, or going off and beating up on gays because they're making money off of gays or whatever, the church is making money off of gays, then you sort of have this loose cannon effect, where these people who, based on no real reason whatsoever, are going off and doing horrible things. So you can do bad things in the name of religion, and I think you can do worse things if you aggregate a whole bunch of people together doing one thing, right, based on the results of a religious leader.
The big problem, in my opinion, is that basically this argument is some people need something like religion to keep them in line. Okay. Yeah. If that's true, then let's go with something like religion that is a way to keep people in line, that is based on something real, that doesn't promote and advocate other things that are immoral. I think it's short-sighted and condescending. It may be true, but I still think it's short-sighted and condescending to portray that there's so many people out there who just simply couldn't be moral if it wasn't Jesus, whacking them with a stick and guiding them with a carrot, or posting the 10 Commandments in a school or whatever. Because frankly, I don't find them that moral, the 10 Commandments or this stick and carrot idea. You're not going to reach everybody, and there may be somebody who needs something like that. But if instead all of the people who are capable of leading ethical lives for good reasons, for real reasons, were to get together and explain this to people, then I think all of a sudden your argument would completely fall apart, because I don't think that there's anybody who's incapable of grasping the really simple concept of, I don't want my stuff stolen and you don't want your stuff stolen, so together we're going to get together and agree that we're not going to steal stuff, and we're going to make a law that punishes people who breaks this. I mean, that's the simplistic kind of practical aspect of ethics.
Well, I understand. That's a good point too. But in the present day, with the masses out there, that they need some kind of, there would be moral anarchy if they don't have some kind of a deterrent, I guess.
Well, you're building a fantasy scenario. You're saying that if all of a sudden people started, losing their religious beliefs in droves, it'd be utter chaos. Well, yeah, it probably would, unless there was some really good reason and some basis for people who lost their religious beliefs. But I mean, that's a fictional scenario. I could say the same thing if all the Muslims started turning Catholic tomorrow. There'd be mass chaos.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll just get another caller.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. We've got Chuck again. How you doing, Chuck?
Hey, Chuck again.
Yes, it's Chuck again. That last caller said something that, just compelled me to call back.
Okay.
And
Let it all out.
Actually, I mean, that's the whole point of religion, is to keep the masses in line. That's why it was invented in the first place.
I don't know that I'd say that. I'd say that
it's a useful tool for doing that.
It is a tool for doing that. It's been used that way. I think elements of it were specifically constructed for that purpose.
And
not
also,
necessarily.
They were to get the masses to go to war.
Yeah. Oh no. It's a great motivator. It's a great uniter.
Sure.
It's just
and the governments would take advantage of it. And like I said earlier, that is what has made this country the great country that it is, because this country, our founding forefathers, had the sense enough to keep the church and the church and the state separate.
Right.
And another thing, he said, what would happen if droves of people started becoming atheists? Well, it's already happening. I read this in the Austin American Statesman here just two or 3 weeks ago, and if you can remember it, tell me.
Tell me a little more.
But it was some survey that goes out periodically, and it counts religious people and atheists and the different religions, and that was one of the results that it had, is that the largest amount that they had ever counted since they started counting of people who were becoming atheists. They didn't say becoming atheists. What they said were they were rejecting religion.
Yeah, so there's this category called nuns, or none of the above, that's growing very large. It's people who have rejected conventional religion. Now, in that category, you could lump atheists, you could lump a lot of other folks, you could lump people who are deists, who believe in a God but don't necessarily believe in going to church and these sorts of things. So it's a bigger category, and it is growing, and it is reflective of people leaving organized religion. The number of atheists, I think, is growing too, but much smaller rate. I don't think it's like, leaps and bounds.
Well, it's hard to
like
pinpoint, and there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily willing to adopt the label or comfortable adopting it.
And these surveys are
some
tricky.
people, there are some of the surveys were so poorly done that you had a huge chunk of the atheists said they also believed in a God.
Which leads you to wonder what they're doing.
Either the questions were phrased poorly or people didn't understand what they meant. We are out of time. And thanks to Chuck, to everybody who called in. By the way, would you like another?
Sure,
another bit of Jesus? I think that's a nipple. But thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the crew, and now you can switch over to the camera that shows the crew. Oh no, they switched to the moo cow. Join us for dinner at Thread Gills down on Riverside. We'll be back on again next week. Don't forget about the putt-putt if you're in town. The Bat Cruise coming up.
Check
all
our
kinds
website.
of events. Check the website. You can email tv@atheist-community.org. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks to the audience and the crew. Woo. You guys are great.
I think the crew.